Dr. Rebecca Torres had been staring at computer screens for so long that her eyes felt like sandpaper. 3 years of monitoring deep space signals had given her nothing but static, random noise from distant stars and the occasional false alarm from Earth's own satellites. Her colleagues often joked that she was listening for ghosts in the darkness of space. Tonight, she was starting to think they might be right. The Deep Space Communications Center sat quietly in the Nevada desert, far from city lights and radio interference. Rebecca worked a night shift because she preferred the silence. During the day, the facility buzzed with technicians and researchers, but at night it was just her, the computers, and the endless whisper of cosmic background radiation. She liked it that way. It gave her time to think, to really focus on the patterns hidden in the noise. At 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in March, everything changed. The first thing Rebecca noticed was that the static on Channel 7 had stopped, complete silence. Then slowly a pattern emerged. Not the random bursts of energy from dying stars or the predictable pulses from pulsars. This was different. This was structured, mathematical, intentional. Her coffee grew cold as she leaned forward, adjusting the equipment with trembling fingers. The signal was coming from somewhere beyond Neptune, deep in the outer solar system. As she fine-tuned the receivers, the pattern became clearer. It was repeating the same sequence over and over, prime numbers, then the Fibonacci sequence, then something that looked like basic chemistry. The universal languages of mathematics and science. Rebecca's heart pounded as she realized what she was seeing. This wasn't a natural phenomenon. Someone or something was trying to communicate. She grabbed her phone and called Dr. Michael Chun, the facility director. His groggy voice answered after 5 rings. "This better be important, Torres. It's almost 3 in the morning. Sir, you need to get down here right now. I'm picking up artificial signals from the outer system." There was a long pause. Artificial how? Mathematical sequences? Prime numbers? Someone's trying to talk to us? 15 minutes later, Chun burst through the door of the control room, still wearing his pajamas under a hastily thrown-on lab coat. Behind him came Dr. Lisa Park, the facility's linguistics expert, and Dr. James Wilson, their computer specialist. Word traveled fast in the small scientific community. "Show me," Chun said, his voice tight with controlled excitement. Rebecca played back the recordings. The room fell silent except for the rhythmic beeping of the decoded signal. Prime numbers: 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, then Fibonacci. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, then what appeared to be the atomic numbers of hydrogen, helium, and carbon. "My God," Wilson whispered, "it's a greeting protocol. They're showing us they understand basic science." Over the next few hours, the team worked frantically to respond. They sent back the same mathematical sequences, then added their own, pi, to 50 decimal places, the atomic structure of water, and basic arithmetic. The response came within minutes, confirming that whatever was out there was indeed trying to establish communication. By dawn, other facilities around the world had picked up the signals. The Arecibo replacement in Puerto Rico, the radio telescopes in Australia, and the European Space Agency's Deep Space Network all confirmed the same thing. Humanity was no longer alone. Dr. Park, who specialized in decoding unknown languages, took the lead on translation efforts. The signals had evolved beyond simple mathematics. Now they contained what appeared to be pictographs, simple images that conveyed basic concepts: a circle for completeness, wavy lines for water, branching patterns that might represent life or growth. "They're trying to tell us about themselves," Park explained to the growing team of scientists. "Look at this sequence. It shows a journey, movement between stars. And here, this pattern repeats whenever they talk about their ship. I think they're in trouble?" The breakthrough came on the 3rd day. Hidden in the mathematical patterns was a star map, showing the position of their transmitter relative to known pulsars. The source was indeed in the outer solar system, drifting in the cold darkness beyond Neptune's orbit. More importantly, the signals were getting weaker. Wilson ran the numbers through the computer. "Their power source is failing. Based on the signal degradation, they've got maybe weeks, possibly less. Can we determine what kind of ship it is? Chun asked. Park had been working on that exact question. From what I can piece together, it's small. Maybe a dozen occupants at most. They call themselves something that translates roughly to the Seeking Ones or the Zilani. They seem to be researchers, not military. Their ship was studying distant galaxies when something went wrong with their navigation. The picture that emerged over the following days was both fascinating and heartbreaking. The Zilani had been on a peaceful research mission, mapping quantum energy patterns in distant star systems. Their ship, designed for long-range exploration, had suffered a cascade failure in its navigation systems while traveling between stars. The failure had dropped them out of faster-than-light travel far from their intended destination, leaving them stranded in our solar system. They had been drifting for months, their ship's power slowly failing as they tried desperately to repair their systems. Their food was running low, their oxygen recyclers were beginning to malfunction, and their distress calls had gone unanswered until Earth's radio telescopes finally picked up their signals. "They're not invaders," Rebecca told the emergency session of world leaders that had been hastily convened. "They're castaways. They were studying how energy moves through space when their ship broke down. Now they're stuck here, slowly dying. And we're the only ones who know about it." The Zilani had shared fragments of their research with Earth, perhaps hoping to demonstrate their peaceful intentions. What the human scientists saw in those data fragments changed everything they thought. They knew about physics. The aliens had discovered a way to harness quantum fluctuations directly, creating clean energy from the very fabric of space itself. The implications were staggering. Unlimited clean power, the end of energy scarcity. A revolution that could transform human civilization, but there was a problem. The Zilani weren't the only ones who had detected their signals. On the 7th day of communication, the aliens' messages changed. Gone were the friendly mathematical exchanges and star maps. Instead, the transmissions became urgent, desperate. Park worked around the clock to translate the new messages, and what she found sent chills through the entire team. "They're saying something is coming," she reported to the emergency council. "Something they call the hunters or the takers. They use symbols that suggest pursuit, capture, death. The Zilani are terrified." Dr. Wilson had been monitoring deep space for any new energy signatures. What he found confirmed their worst fears. Massive objects were approaching from the direction of Alpha Centauri, traveling at speeds that suggested advanced propulsion technology. Whatever was coming was far larger and more powerful than the small Zilani research vessel. The ship. "Profiles don't match anything in our databases," Wilson reported. "But based on their approach vector and the Zilani's panic, I'd say we're looking at a hunter-killer fleet. They've been tracking the Zilani, and now they've found them." The last coherent message from the Zilani was simple but chilling. "The hunters come. We cannot run, we cannot fight. If anyone hears this, remember that we tried to share knowledge, not war. Do not let them take what we have learned. It belongs to all who seek the light." Then the signal stopped, replaced by an ominous silence that seemed to stretch across the solar system like a held breath. Humanity had made first contact with an alien species, only to watch helplessly as they prepared to become victims of an interstellar crime. The question now was whether Earth would remain silent witnesses to what might be the first act of genocide humanity had ever observed, or whether they would find the courage to do something about it. Dr. Rebecca Torres hadn't slept in 36 hours. The coffee machine in the Deep Space Communication Center had been working overtime, and empty cups littered her desk like monuments to exhaustion. But sleep was impossible when humanity had just witnessed something that would haunt her dreams for years to come. The hunter ships had appeared without warning. It started as a distortion on the deep space sensors, something that made Dr. Wilson frown and adjust his equipment. "I'm getting some weird readings from Sector 7, he muttered, tapping his screen. "Energy signatures that don't match anything in our database." Rebecca looked up from her translation work. She had been trying to decode the last fragments of Zilani transmissions, hoping to understand more about their quantum research. The aliens had gone silent 12 hours ago, and the silence felt wrong, threatening. What kind of energy signatures? She asked. Big ones, really big. And they're moving fast. Within minutes, the truth became clear. 6 massive objects had dropped out of faster-than-light travel in the outer solar system. They were enormous, each one easily 3 times the size of the International Space Station. Unlike the small, delicate curves of the Zilani research vessel, these ships were all sharp angles and predatory lines. They looked like they had been designed for one purpose. War. Dr. Chun burst into the control room, his face pale. The European Space Agency is picking up the same readings, so is Japan. These new ships, they're surrounding the Zilani vessel. Rebecca felt her stomach drop. Surrounding them how? Wilson pulled up the tactical display on the main screen. What they saw made everyone in the room go silent. The 6 hunter ships had formed a perfect sphere around the stranded Zilani vessel. There was no escape route, no gap in their formation. It was a textbook military encirclement, executed with the precision of predators who had done this many times before. They're not here to help, Chun said quietly. This is a trap. The first communication from the Hunter fleet came exactly 1 hour after their arrival. It wasn't directed at Earth. These new aliens either didn't know humans existed, or they simply didn't care. The message was broadcast on the same frequencies the Zilani had been using, and Dr. Park worked frantically to translate it. It's a demand, she said, her voice shaking. They're calling themselves something that translates to the Takers or the Harvesters. They want the Zilani to surrender their research data. All of it, and if they refuse? Rebecca asked, though she already knew the answer. Park's face was grim. They die? The message was repeated every 15 minutes, each time with growing impatience. The Hunter commander identified himself with a designation that Park translated as Fleet Commander Vex. His communications were cold, efficient, and completely without mercy. He spoke about the Zilani research as if it were cargo to be collected, not the life's work of intelligent beings. Zilani vessel, this is Fleet Commander Vex of the Kethmer Hunter Division. You have exactly 12 hours to transfer all quantum research data to our ships. You will also surrender any beings with direct knowledge of the research procedures. Compliance will result in quick termination. Resistance will result in prolonged suffering before termination. There are no other options. Rebecca felt sick. They're not even pretending this is anything other than murder and theft. The Zilani response came 3 hours later, transmitted on a narrow beam that the hunters couldn't intercept. It was directed straight at Earth, and Dr. Park translated it with tears in her eyes. To the listeners of the Third World, we are Dr. Kelazin and the research crew of the vessel Brightseeker. We know our time is ending. The Kethmer have followed us across 3 star systems. They are not explorers or traders. They are parasites who steal knowledge and destroy those who create it. The message continued, describing the Kethmer hunting fleets that roam the galaxy, seeking out advanced civilizations to rob and eliminate. They were technological scavengers, taking the work of others and claiming it as their own. The Zilani had encountered them before, always as victims, never as equals. They will demand our quantum research. This knowledge could power 1,000 worlds without pollution or resource depletion. It should belong to all who seek to build rather than destroy. But the Kethmer will use it only to power more hunter ships, to find and kill more researchers. Like us, Dr. Wilson had been monitoring the energy readings from both fleets. What he discovered made the situation even more desperate. The hunter ships are charging their weapon systems. Whatever those things are armed with, they're getting ready to use them. The weapons that appeared on the hunter ships defied human understanding. Massive energy cannons emerged from hidden ports, their barrels crackling with contained power. Point defense systems activated, creating a web of overlapping fire zones. These weren't ships built for exploration or research. They were designed to kill efficiently and completely. The Zilani ship has no weapons, Chun observed. Their energy profile shows they're purely civilian. Scientists, not soldiers. Rebecca watched the tactical display with growing horror. 6. Warships against one unarmed research vessel. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution waiting to happen. The next transmission from Dr. Kelazin was even more heartbreaking. We have 13 crew members aboard Bright Seeker. We are researchers, teachers, and students. The youngest among us is barely past the age of learning. The oldest has spent 2 centuries studying the peaceful applications of quantum energy. None of us have ever harmed another being. The Zelani scientists went on to describe their research in more detail. They had discovered how to tap directly into the quantum foam that underlied all of space-time, extracting clean energy without any harmful byproducts. The process required no fuel, produced no waste, and could theoretically power entire civilizations. It was the kind of breakthrough that could end energy scarcity forever. We offer this knowledge freely to any who would use it to build, to heal, to explore. But the Kethmer will use it only to destroy. They have already taken the work of 47 research expeditions. 47 crews like ours, now floating dead in the void while the hunters profit from their discoveries. Dr. Park had been analyzing the linguistic patterns in both alien languages. What she found added another layer of tragedy to the situation. The Kethmer language has no words for share, give, or cooperation, but they have 17 different terms for various types of theft and conquest. As the 12-hour deadline approached, the situation became increasingly desperate. The Zelani continued to transmit their research data to Earth, hoping that at least someone would preserve their life's work. They sent detailed instructions on quantum energy extraction, mathematical proofs, and even personal messages from crew members to families they would never see again. "This is Dr. Nara Tell," came one transmission. "I want my children on the home world to know that I spent my last days discovering something beautiful. The universe is full of infinite energy, just waiting for us to learn how to touch it gently. I hope someone, somewhere, will use this knowledge to light their worlds without darkness." The final hour arrived with mechanical precision. Fleet Commander Vex broadcast his last ultimatum, his voice carrying the cold certainty of someone who had done this countless times before. "Zelani vessel, your time has expired. You have chosen destruction over compliance. We will now demonstrate the consequences of defying the Kethmer Empire. Let this be a lesson to any who might consider similar foolishness." The hunter ships powered their weapons to full charge, energy readings spiking across every sensor in the solar system. Earth's deep space monitoring stations tracked the buildup with helpless fascination. They were about to witness the first confirmed act of genocide in human history, and there was absolutely nothing they could do to stop it. But just as Fleet Commander Vex gave the order to fire, something impossible happened. 3 new contacts appeared on the long-range sensors, accelerating from Earth orbit toward the outer system. They were human ships, and they were heading straight into what would certainly be their destruction. The emergency call came at 4:17 a.m. Washington time. President Catherine Morrison had been dreading this moment ever since the first alien signals were detected. She sat in the Situation Room, surrounded by the most powerful people on Earth, all of them looking just as lost as she felt. "Tell me we have options," she said, rubbing her tired eyes. "Please tell me we have something better than watching innocent beings get murdered in our own solar system." General Robert Hayes, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, looked grim. "Ma'am, we have exactly 3 spacecraft capable of reaching the outer system. They're modified asteroid mining ships, originally designed for resource extraction beyond Mars. Against advanced alien warships, they'd be completely outmatched." Defense Secretary Linda Walsh leaned forward. "Mr. President, we're talking about sending our people to die for aliens we've known about for less than a week. The public doesn't even know any of this is happening yet." "The public doesn't know because we decided to keep it classified," Morrison replied sharply. "And now we're the ones who have to decide whether humanity's first act on the galactic stage is to hide in the shadows while we watch genocide happen in our backyard." Dr. Elena Rodriguez from the National Science Foundation had been quiet until Now, she was one of the few people in the room who had actually studied the Zilani transmissions. Ma'am, with respect, this isn't just about saving alien lives. The research they're sharing with us could revolutionize everything. Clean energy that could power the entire planet without pollution. Medical technologies we can barely understand. Agricultural improvements that could end hunger. And you think the hunters don't know that? General Hayes shot back. They've been doing this for who knows how long. They're professional killers with technology centuries ahead of ours. Morrison turned to Dr. James Park, who had been brought in as the government's expert on the alien communications. Doctor, what exactly are we dealing with out there? Park had dark circles under his eyes from days of non-stop translation work. The hunters call themselves the Kethmer Empire. From what we can piece together, they're essentially galactic pirates. They track down advanced civilizations, steal their technology, and eliminate any witnesses. The Zilani aren't their first victims. They've done this dozens of times before. How do you know that? Walsh asked. Because the Zilani told us. They've been documenting Kethmer attacks for decades. 47 research expeditions, all destroyed. Hundreds of alien scientists, all dead. The hunters take their discoveries and claim them as their own innovations. Secretary of State David Chun spoke up from his video link in Geneva. What about diplomacy? Have we tried contacting these Kethmer directly? With what leverage? General Hayes replied. They have 6 warships. We have 3 mining vessels. With improvised weapons? They'd laugh at us, assuming they bothered to respond at all. Morrison stood and walked to the window, looking out at the pre-dawn darkness. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of human eyes, innocent beings were preparing to die. The weight of the moment pressed down on her shoulders like a physical force. What do our allies say? She asked. The European Union is willing to contribute their lunar research station's resources, Chun reported. Japan is offering their deep space monitoring network. Russia is staying neutral as usual. China wants a full technology sharing agreement before they'll even consider helping. So we're on our own, Morrison said. It wasn't a question, Doctor. Rodriguez cleared her throat. Ma'am, there's something else you need to know. The Zilani have been sending us detailed intelligence about the hunter fleet. Ship specifications, weapon capabilities, crew numbers. They're giving us everything. They know about their killers. Why would they do that? Walsh asked. Because they hope someone somewhere will eventually stop the Kethmer. Maybe not today, maybe not us, but eventually. They're turning their murder into a gift of knowledge for whoever comes next. The room fell silent. Morrison returned to her seat and looked around the table at the faces of her advisors. Each one carried the weight of an impossible decision. Tell me about our ships, she said finally. What exactly are we working with? General Hayes pulled up a holographic display. 3 vessels, the Prometheus, the Atlas, and the Titan, originally designed for asteroid mining in the belt. We've been retrofitting them with experimental weapons for the past 6 months as part of the Planetary Defense Initiative. Experimental. How? Railgun systems, mostly. Kinetic energy weapons that fire metal slugs at extreme velocity. They're effective against asteroids, but against energy shields and advanced armor... He shrugged, unknown. Dr. Rodriguez had been studying the technical specifications. The mining ships do have one advantage. They're built for long-duration operations in deep space. Heavy shielding against radiation and debris. If they can get close enough, they might survive the first exchange of fire. Might, Walsh repeated. That's not exactly confidence-inspiring. Morrison turned to Admiral Patricia Cross, the Navy's representative. Admiral, what's your assessment? Cross had been quiet during most of the discussion, but her expression was thoughtful rather than defeated. Ma'am, I've been thinking about this from a different angle. We're not trying to win a war here. We're trying to save lives and make a statement. What kind of statement? That Earth doesn't tolerate bullies. That we're willing to stand up for what's right even when the odds are against us. Sometimes the moral choice isn't about winning or losing. It's about showing who you are when everything's on the line. The president looked around the room one more time. Dr. Park, in your professional opinion, do the Zilani have any chance of surviving if we don't intervene? Park shook his head. None whatsoever. The hunters have done this before. They're efficient, thorough, and completely without mercy. If we do nothing, 13 innocent beings will be dead within hours. And if we do something? Then at least they'll know they weren't alone, that someone tried to help. And maybe, just maybe, we'll learn something that helps us survive when the hunters decide Earth looks interesting. Morrison closed her eyes and made the decision that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. General Hayes, how quickly can we get those ships ready for departure? Hayes looked surprised. Ma'am, are you sure about this? I'm not sure about anything, but I know that if we do nothing, we'll regret it for the rest of human history. How long do we need? The ships are already prepped for emergency launch. We can have them underway in 6 hours. Do it. And General, I want volunteers only. No one gets ordered into this mission. Admiral Cross smiled for the first time all morning. Ma'am, I don't think you'll have trouble finding volunteers. As the meeting broke up and the machinery of government moved into action, Morrison remained in the Situation Room with Dr. Rodriguez. The scientist had been studying the Zilani data transmissions throughout the entire discussion. Doctor, tell me honestly, is this technology they're sharing really as revolutionary as you think? Rodriguez nodded without hesitation. Ma'am, if we can understand even half of what they're teaching us, we could solve the energy crisis within a decade. Clean power for everyone, everywhere. No more wars over oil or coal. No more pollution choking our cities. It would change everything. And if the hunters get it instead, then they become unstoppable. They already prey on peaceful civilizations. With unlimited clean energy, they could build fleets that would dominate the entire galaxy. Morrison looked out the window again, where the first hints of dawn were beginning to touch the horizon. Then we'd better make sure that doesn't happen. 6 hours later, 3 human spacecraft lifted off from Earth's orbital stations, heading into the darkness toward a confrontation that would determine not just the fate of 13 alien researchers, but the future of humanity itself. The crew members were volunteers all, ordinary people who had chosen to risk everything for beings they had never met. In the name of principles that defined what it meant to be human, behind them, Earth held its breath and waited to see if courage could triumph over overwhelming odds. Captain Maria Valdez gripped the control stick of the Prometheus as her ship hurtled through the darkness between worlds. Behind her, the blue marble of Earth had shrunk to a tiny dot, and ahead lay the most dangerous mission in human history. She had volunteered for this without hesitation, but now that they were actually racing toward 6 alien warships, the reality of what they were attempting hit her like a punch to the stomach. Contact in 47 minutes, reported Lieutenant. Commander Jake Morrison from the navigation station. The irony of his last name wasn't lost on anyone. The president's decision had put them here, but it was Jake's calculations that would get them to the battle zone alive. Any word from the other ships? Maria asked. Atlas and Titan are maintaining formation, came the reply from communications. Officer Rachel Kim. Captain Torres on the Atlas reports all systems green. Captain Brooks on the Titan says his railgun system is charging normally. Maria nodded, trying to project confidence she didn't entirely feel. The 3 ships had been designed to break apart asteroids and haul chunks of rock back to Earth. Now they were being asked to face down an alien armada that had been perfecting the art of interstellar warfare for centuries. The plan, such as it was, relied more on surprise than firepower. Earth's ships would drop out of hyperspace right on top of the Hunter formation, broadcast a demand for the Zilani's release, and hope that their sudden appearance might create enough confusion to start some kind of negotiation. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was all they had. Captain, Rachel said, her voice tight with tension, I'm picking up transmissions from the target area. The Hunters are still broadcasting their ultimatum to the Zilani vessel. Can you translate it? Dr. Park uploaded the translation protocols before we left. The Hunter commander is giving them one final chance to surrender their research. If they refuse, he's going to start executing crew members one by one until they comply. Maria felt her jaw clench. The cold brutality of it was almost beyond comprehension. These weren't soldiers or warriors. They were researchers and teachers. People whose only crime was discovering something beautiful and wanting to share it with the universe. "Time to target?" she asked. 38 minutes, Jake replied. "Captain, I've been running the numbers on their weapon systems. Based on the energy signatures Dr. Wilson detected, their main guns could probably vaporize our ships in a single shot." "Probably?" "Well, they're designed to kill ships much more advanced than ours. We might be so primitive that we're beneath their notice, like trying to swat a fly with a nuclear missile." It wasn't exactly encouraging, but Maria had to admire his optimism. "Keep monitoring their communications. I want to know the second anything changes." The next 20 minutes passed in tense silence. Each crew member was alone with their thoughts, knowing they were probably flying to their deaths but unable to turn back. They had all volunteered for this mission, understanding the odds. More than that, they had demanded to be part of it when word of the alien crisis had spread through the small community of deep space workers. The response had been overwhelming. Every qualified pilot, engineer, and communications specialist had begged to be included. The selection process had been agonizing, with hundreds of volunteers competing for 36 spots across the 3 ships. "Contact," Jake announced suddenly. "I'm picking up the Hunter fleet on long-range sensors. 6 large vessels in spherical formation around a smaller target. The smaller ship has to be the Zilani research vessel." Maria switched her display too. The tactical screen, what she saw made her stomach drop. The Hunter ships were massive, each one bristling with weapons that dwarfed anything in Earth's arsenal. They had arranged themselves in perfect military formation, cutting off every possible escape route for their victim. "My God," whispered Rachel, "look at the size of those things." The lead Hunter ship was nearly a kilometer long, its dark hull covered in sensor arrays and weapon turrets. The other 5 were slightly smaller, but equally menacing. Compared to them, the human ships looked like rowboats challenging battleships. "New transmission from the Hunters," Rachel reported. They single quotes read ... wait, they're not talking to the Zilani anymore, they're talking to us. Maria felt her heart skip a beat. Put it through. The voice that filled the bridge was cold and mechanical, translated by the computer systems Dr. Park had installed. "Unknown vessels, you are entering a restricted military operation. Identify yourselves immediately or be destroyed." Maria took a deep breath and opened the communication channel. "This is Captain Maria Valdez of the Earth vessel Prometheus. We demand the immediate release of the research vessel and safe passage for all beings in this system." The response came back almost instantly, filled with what could only be described as alien laughter. "Earth vessel? You are the primitive inhabitants of the 3rd planet? How amusing. You will withdraw immediately, or we will add your debris to the collection around the research ship." "We're not withdrawing," Maria said firmly. "We're here to prevent an act of genocide." There was a longer pause this time. When the Hunter commander responded, his tone had changed. It was no longer amused, it was annoyed. "I am Fleet Commander Vex of the Kethmer Hunter Division. We have claimed this research vessel and its contents according to the ancient rites of conquest. Your interference is both futile and illegal under galactic law." Dr. Park's voice crackled through the ship's internal communications from his position in the analysis center. "Captain, I've been monitoring their transmissions. The Hunters have gone completely silent on their internal channels. I think we've genuinely surprised them." That made sense, Maria realized. The Kethmer had been hunting helpless research vessels for decades. They had probably never encountered anyone stupid enough to interfere with their operations. Earth's arrival had thrown them completely off their script. "Fleet Commander Vex," Maria continued, "we don't recognize your authority in this system. These beings have committed no crime except the pursuit of knowledge. We demand their immediate release." "You demand?" Vex's voice carried a note of genuine incredulity. "You arrive in mining vessels and make demands of the Kethmer Empire? Your species lacks even basic faster-than-light capability. What could you possibly offer that would interest us?" It was Jake who provided the answer. He had been quietly working at his station throughout the exchange, analyzing the data streams from both alien fleets. Now he looked up with something. Approaching excitement. "Captain, I've been studying the communications protocols between the hunter ships. They're not just talking to each other. They're receiving status updates from somewhere else, somewhere far away. So they're not operating independently. They're part of a larger military campaign. And based on the message fragments I can decode, that campaign isn't going well." Maria felt a spark of hope. "Explain." "The hunters keep referencing something called the Vorthok Advance. From context, it sounds like they're being pushed back by some kind of enemy force. The hunter fleet is actually retreating from a losing battle." Dr. Park's voice came through the communications again. "Captain, the Zilani have been transmitting continuously since we arrived. They're sending us everything they know about the hunters, including their enemies. If Jake is right about this Vorthok situation, we might have something to bargain." With Maria's mind raced. The hunters were professional pirates, but they were also military strategists. If they were facing a threat to their own survival, they might be willing to negotiate rather than simply blast the human ships out of space. "Rachel, open a channel to the Zilani vessel. I want to know everything they can tell us about these Vorthok in the next 5 minutes." "Already on it, Captain. Dr. Kelazin is transmitting detailed intelligence reports now. The Vorthok Empire has been hunting the hunters for decades. They're apparently closing in on Kethmer home territory." Fleet Commander Vex's voice cut through. "They're planning Earth vessels. You have 30 seconds to withdraw before we demonstrate the consequences of interfering with Kethmer operations." Maria looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They were scared, but they were also determined. They had come here to save lives, and they weren't backing down now. "Commander Vex," she said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "We have information about the Vorthok Advance that you desperately need. Information that could save your entire species from extinction. Are you willing to discuss terms?" The silence that followed seemed to stretch across the entire solar system, broken only by the hum of ship systems and the rapid beating of human hearts. The silence stretched for what felt like forever. Captain Maria Valdez watched her tactical display, where 6 massive hunter ships held their weapons trained on her small fleet. One wrong word, one misunderstood gesture, and this would all be over in a flash of alien fire. But she had played her only card, and now she had to wait to see if Fleet Commander Vex valued his species' survival more than his pride. "Captain," whispered Dr. Park through the communications link, "the Zilani are transmitting everything they know about the Vorthok military movements. Ship positions, attack patterns, strategic weaknesses. It's like they're giving us their entire intelligence database." Maria kept her eyes on the screen. "Are you sure the hunters need this information?" "Based on the communication fragments Jake intercepted, the Kethmer have lost 3 major battles in the past month. The Vorthok aren't just winning, they're destroying entire hunter fleets. If this keeps up, the Kethmer Empire could collapse within a year." That was the leverage they needed, but Maria knew she had to be careful. Push too hard, and Vex might decide to eliminate all witnesses rather than negotiate. Too soft, and he might call her bluff. Finally, Vex's voice crackled through the communication system. "Earth vessel Prometheus, you claim to possess intelligence about Vorthok operations. This seems unlikely. Your species has barely achieved primitive space travel." "Commander Vex," Maria replied, choosing her words carefully, "the beings you're threatening to kill have been studying galactic civilizations for decades. They've documented Vorthok movements, tactical doctrines, and strategic objectives, information that could save your people." "Prove it." Maria nodded to Rachel, who had been coordinating with the Zilani vessel. "We're transmitting a sample now. Vorthok fleet positions in the Kepler 186 system as of 48 hours ago. The wait this time was shorter, but more intense." Maria could almost feel Vex analyzing the data, cross-referencing it with his own intelligence reports. When he spoke again, his tone had changed completely. This intelligence is accurate. How did you obtain it? The Zilani research vessel has been monitoring deep space communications across multiple systems. They've been tracking Vorthak expansion for months, hoping to stay out of their path. Dr. Park's voice came through the internal communications. Captain, I'm detecting increased chatter between the hunter ships. They're discussing something in rapid bursts. The translation is patchy, but I think they're debating whether to trust us. Maria made a decision that would echo through history. Commander Vex, I'm going to be completely honest with you. We're not military. We're miners and researchers who volunteered for this mission because we couldn't stand by and watch innocent beings be murdered. We have 3 ships against your 6, and our weapons are probably toys compared to yours. Then why are you here? Because sometimes doing the right thing matters more than winning. The Zilani offered to share their discoveries with the universe. Knowledge that could benefit everyone. If you kill them and steal their research, you're not just committing murder. You're destroying the future. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison looked up from his station with excitement. Captain, I'm picking up new contacts on long-range sensors. Big ones, coming from the direction of Alpha Centauri. They're moving fast. Maria felt her blood turn to ice. More hunters? Negative. The energy signatures don't match. These are different ships entirely. Dr. Park's voice cut through the tension. Captain, the Zilani are transmitting frantically. They're saying the new contacts match Vorthak ship profiles. The hunters' enemies have found them. Fleet Commander? Vex apparently received the same information at the same time. His next transmission carried a note of genuine fear. Vorthak Advanced Scouts, 4 vessels, heavy cruiser class. They've tracked us here. The tactical situation had just become exponentially more complicated. Now there were 3 different groups of alien ships converging on the same point in space: the Kethmar hunters, the helpless Zilani researchers, and the approaching Vorthak fleet that apparently wanted to destroy the hunters. Commander Vex, Maria said quickly, we have complete intelligence on Vorthak tactical doctrine. Attack patterns, weapon capabilities, defensive strategies. Everything the Zilani have observed over months of monitoring their operations. What do you want in? Exchange? The immediate release of the Zilani research vessel and a guarantee of safe passage for all civilian craft in this system. There was another pause, shorter this time. Vex was clearly running out of options. The intelligence must be complete and accurate. Any deception will result in the immediate destruction of all human vessels. Understood, Dr. Park. Transmit everything. For the next 20 minutes, data streamed between the human ships and the hunter fleet. The Zilani had been thorough in their observations. They had documented Vorthak ship movements across 17 different star systems, analyzed their communication protocols, and even identified key weaknesses in their defensive formations. Jake monitored the approaching enemy ships. The Vorthak fleet will be in weapons range in approximately 2 hours. 4 heavy cruisers just like the Zilani predicted. Captain, Rachel reported, Commander Vex is requesting a direct communication link, audio only. Put him through. When Vex spoke this time, his voice was different. Less arrogant, more calculating. Captain Valdez, your intelligence appears to be accurate and comprehensive. The tactical analyses match our own observations, and several items provide insights we lacked. Does that mean we have a deal? The situation is more complex than a simple exchange. The Vorthak do not take prisoners. If they find us here, all ships will be targeted for destruction. This includes your vessels and the Zilani research ship. Maria realized what he was saying. You're offering to protect us? I'm offering a temporary alliance. Your ships are too primitive to survive against Vorthak weapons, but the intelligence you have provided could allow us to escape this system with minimal losses. Dr. Park's analysis came through the internal communications. Captain, I think he's being honest. The Kethmar language has specific terms for different types of agreements. The word he used translates to something like mutual survival pact. It's temporary, but it's binding under their cultural code. What about the Zilani? Maria asked. They will be released as agreed. However, they must also accept the protection. of this alliance if they wished to survive the next few hours. It wasn't the outcome anyone had planned, but it was better than genocide. Maria made another decision that would reshape humanity's future. Commander Vex, on behalf of Earth, I accept your alliance proposal. The next hour was a frenzy of activity. The hunter ships broke their encirclement of the Zilani vessel and moved into a defensive formation that included the human ships. It was surreal seeing Earth's mining vessels flying in formation with advanced alien warships, but the alternative was extinction. Dr. Kelazin, the Zilani research leader, transmitted a message of gratitude that brought tears to Maria's eyes. People of Earth, you have done something unprecedented. You risked everything for beings you had never met, guided only by moral conviction. This choice will be remembered across the galaxy. The Vorthic fleet arrived exactly when predicted, dropping out of hyperspace with weapons already charging. But they found something they hadn't expected, a coordinated defense instead of scattered victims. The intelligence the Zilani had provided allowed the Allied fleet to anticipate every attack pattern. The battle was brief but decisive. The Vorthak ships, accustomed to hunting individual targets, couldn't adapt quickly enough to a unified defense. 2 of their vessels were destroyed, and the remaining 2 retreated after suffering heavy damage. As the immediate threat passed, Commander Vex fulfilled his part of the agreement. The Zilani vessel is free to depart, as are your ships, Captain Valdez. However, I must warn you that your species has now announced its presence to a dangerous galaxy. We understand the risks, Maria replied. But we also understand that some things are worth fighting for. 6 months later, Maria stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the construction of humanity's first true starship. The quantum energy research shared by the Zilani had revolutionized human technology almost overnight. Clean power flowed through every city on Earth, and the first interstellar colonies were already being planned. More importantly, word of humanity's intervention had spread throughout the galaxy. The Zilani had kept their promise to remember, sharing the story of the species that chose courage over safety. Other peaceful civilizations had begun reaching out, offering trade agreements and defensive alliances. The universe was vast and often dangerous, but humanity had proven something important that day in the outer solar system. Sometimes the right choice wasn't about winning or losing. Sometimes it was simply about refusing to let evil triumph while good people did nothing, and in a galaxy where might too often made right, that choice had made all the difference.